Hello and welcome back to the Rimworld. Once again, Zach's life is in peril. One of Zach's wounds has developed an infection which will kill him if we leave him be, so we're going to have Josh tend to that straight away since once again, he's the closest. Of course, we still don't have any medicine on hand, so once again Josh is forced to improvise. It's going to require several treatments to take care of this infection, so we'll want to change that first thing in the morning. So let's find some wild heal root and mark it for harvesting. Before long, Josh finishes tending to Zach and gets him some breakfast. If we mouse over the infection, we can see two numbers that we need to keep an eye on. The first is the percentage next to infection. If this reaches 100%, then Zach dies. The second number is the percentage next to immunity. If this number reaches 100% before the infection does, Zach will develop an immunity to the infection, and the infection number will slowly fall back down to 0. Excellent. So in his sleep, Josh has determined that our faction and settlement need names. I'm going to leave them as the defaults for now, because I want you guys to come up with some ideas for names, and I'll change them later. Notice on the right hand side, the game is telling us that we need some defenses. That means within the next few days we're going to start seeing some attacks, so we want to take care of this sooner rather than later. A little while later, we find a dead elk that was probably hunted by the local grizzly bear, so we'll have Kylie haul that back to base. Meanwhile, we'll have Miggy haul the dead warg back to base so we can enjoy some savory justice. Checking in on Zach, we can see that because we acted so quickly to tend his infection, he's making nice progress towards immunity. So I think it's time we put our corpse-eating savagery behind us and made use of our stove. We're going to use it to make simple meals and pemmican. The advantage of simple meals is that it only needs either meat or vegetables to make, whereas pemmican has an extremely long storage life. Thankfully, Michael has recovered enough so that he's no longer incapable of walking. However, he is going to need some more rest to make it back to 100%. As Josh arrives back at base to tend to Zach, he attempts to wound Kylie, but she says no thank you. With that out of the way, Josh can get down to the business of tending to Zach's infection, this time with herbal medicine, so Zach's immunity percentage will rise much more quickly than before, so I'd say his chances are looking pretty good at this point. Our next project will be to build a proper storage room. Our current stockpile has a roof over it, which is better than nothing, but all of the items in it are still exposed to the elements. This awkwardly shaped space next to the main room should do that job quite nicely. I make another move on Kylie, but still no dice on that front. After Josh quickly butchers a rabbit, we all turn in for some rest. The next morning, as the colony chops down more trees for wood, Zach's infection reaches the extreme stage. We don't need to worry about this, however, as Zach reaches immunity before Ryan can even tend to him. Now the infection will slowly recede until it's gone altogether, so it looks like Zach gets to live for at least another day. Okay, so it's time we did some more hunting. Although hares and rats have a 0% chance of attacking back, it's just not enough food for 6 colonists. And after that warg attack, I'm feeling a bit more confident, so I think it's time we went after something a little bit bigger. And we're going to choose an elk, because at worst we'll only have to deal with 2 enraged animals, and I'm pretty sure we can handle that. In just a couple hours after developing an immunity, Zack is finally able to move under his own power again. But like Michael, he's going to require some more rest before he recovers completely. Next up, we'll build a small wall at the entrance to our base. This is quite literally a stopgap measure, but it should buy us a few precious seconds to organize a response should we come under attack. In the middle of the afternoon, a flash storm appears. This means that several lightning strikes are going to hit a concentrated area, which is going to lead to a huge fire. Fortunately, there's a good bit of stone between the strike zone and our colony, so our home should be safe. We may lose the farm, but I'm not terribly worried about it since it's not very large yet. However, we are going to cut down the trees near the fire in hopes of slowing its advance towards our farm anyway. But just moments later, Kylie wanders too close to the blaze and sets herself on fire. Fortunately, she hops into the nearby pond, so she doesn't get too badly burned. And with that, the colony once again calls it a day. The next morning begins our 6th day out on the rim, and we're still sleeping on the floor like a bunch of savages. To continue not to do anything about that would just be criminal, and so since we have a decent supply of leather going, we're going to use some of that to craft ourselves some bedrolls. And before most of us have even started our day, Kylie's already completely recovered from her burns. You gonna eat that? No? Thanks. At about noon, the fire starts to peter out. In an effort to speed things up in the kitchen, we'll place 2 stockpile zones next to the stove with higher priorities than the storage room. One will hold vegetarian ingredients, and the other will hold meat. This should reduce the number of trips the cook has to make to the storage room. In the early evening, Josh constructs our entrance wall. And our little storage room is already running out of space, so we'll need to expand it a bit. After snacking on some berries, Josh turns in with the rest of us, thus rounding off a fairly uneventful day on the rim. Early in the morning, a heat wave arrives, so over the next few days it's going to get very, very hot outside. Since we don't need any of our colonists getting heat stroke, we're going to need to make sure we have a cool place to retreat to, so let's build a passive cooler. And it looks like someone finally managed to get Kylie's attention. Zach wooed Kylie by cheerfully making fun of her skills. Kylie responded well and is now Zach's lover. Pretty standard stuff, really. But honestly, it's pretty hard to imagine a better pairing than a psychopath and a cannibal, so we're going to make some adjustments to the sleeping spots. Alright, now that Kylie and Zach share a sleeping spot, they're both going to get some pretty significant mood buffs. Soon, all of the bedrolls are done. Unfortunately, we don't have enough material to make a double bedroll, so Zach and Kylie get to keep sleeping on the floor for a while.
No, it's fine, it doesn't bother me, it bothers me a lot.
Later in the day, I find a free pig, so we're just gonna help ourselves. Suddenly, a cluster of cargo pods crashes down on the north edge of the map. We were actually really fortunate with this drop since it's full of agave fruit, so we're going to allow our colonists to interact with the fruit so it can be hauled back to base. In the early afternoon, Michael suffers a second mental break. Fortunately, he isn't being violent this time, and is instead just going to wander around in a daze for a while. So, since nothing else very interesting happens for the rest of the day, let's just call the episode here. We managed to get to a semi-stable position, so I'd call that some decent progress. Next time, we'll see how long it takes Michael to collapse from exhaustion. And since I still haven't figured out how to end these episodes, I'm just gonna fade to black again.